those who are on YouTube, those who are on our telephone call that's going to be calling in. We want to welcome you to our weekly virtual town meeting. Today is Thursday, August the 13th. I'm very honored to have our guests here tonight. A few of them are not guests because we've been doing this now for over 21 to 22 weeks. I do want to just introduce our guest tonight, and that's Ayanna Taylor Benson, who is joining us. Also, Dr. Griffin, who is our Director of Health and Human Services. And we also have our very own with us tonight, our Business Administrator, Solomon Steplight, and a young lady who works for the Mayor's Office for Constituent Service, Aja Baldwin. We have a great meeting tonight. We're going to talk about several things. We're going to talk about how parents can navigate. That's what Ayanna is going to talk about in terms of our young people. Dr. Griffin is going to continue to talk about the importance of the COVID numbers and what we still need to be doing. And also she's going to chime in on, because she has been working with our school district and our business administrator. We know how hard he works and several things that he has been doing in terms of the last 2.5 years, but mainly during this COVID. And I just really going to talk about the importance, I'm going to say that again, the importance of our 2020 census, what you need to do, where you need to call, what website you need to go on to get the information and make sure that you complete the form. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Connie Jackson, and she's going to give you several numbers to call in and give you the things you need to do to make sure that you get your voice heard tonight. So again, Connie Jackson, who is our public relations person.
Thank you, Mayor Green. Besides watching us here on Facebook, YouTube, and Vimeo, you can call in to 301-715-8592. The meeting ID is 982-9639-3467. And if you're watching us live here on Facebook, you can post questions in our comments. Now, it's my pleasure to turn our meeting back over to Mayor Green.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jackson. So we're going to get right into our meeting, but I do want to just say to everyone who has been tuning in, again, for the last 22 weeks and hanging out with us on Thursdays at 6 p.m., these meetings have been to make sure that we bring information directly right to your doors, right to your telephones and to your laptops or whatever, however you're watching us. So we're just happy that the information that we have been providing for the last, like I say, 22 weeks, and this is an ongoing thing. We know for a fact that by having these weekly meetings, it gives all our constituents out there an opportunity to not only ask questions and not only get some questions answered, but also if there's any concerns pertaining to the city, so we welcome that. So with that, we're going to go right into our meeting because we're excited to have our guests on tonight, Ayanna Taylor Benson, who really president of Assets Educational Advisors and clinical assistant professor of NYU. But before that, we're going to turn it over to Dr. Griffin, who has been doing an excellent job in making sure that all of us, making sure we stuck to the rules and regulations of this COVID thing. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Griffin to give some numbers and some updates on what we need to be doing in terms of this COVID-19. Dr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. I just have to start out by saying thank you. Thank you to all of the residents that have been really diligently following all of the health and safety guidelines, because you've heard me talk a little bit about all of the things that we need to do and the numbers, and I will report on the numbers. And as I do, I think it's going to be important to note that we as a city would not be in the place that we are in with our COVID numbers if everybody wasn't adhering to the health and safety guidelines, if everyone wasn't covering their faces, washing their hands, and doing everything that they need to do to keep themselves safe and everyone else. Within the state, we've noticed an increase in COVID numbers, but it hasn't affected us specifically here in East Orange to the same extent. Within the state, the number of positive cases currently has reached 186,594 positive cases. That's an increase in 656 cases from even yesterday. We, within the county, have a total of 132,617 positive cases also. That is reflected, that reflects an increase of 1,623 cases since yesterday. When we look at what's happening here within, or excuse me, that's the number of negative cases. The positive cases is 19,831 cases, positive cases within the county. Here within the city of East Orange, we currently have 2,036 positive cases. And since last week, that represents an increase in 2 positive cases. And that's pretty significant because when you look at what's happening again across the state, the fact that here within the city, we only have an increase in 2 positive cases is amazing. And the only way that we'll continue to be able to do that is if everyone continues to wear their masks, continues to clean their hands, using sanitizer, soap, social distancing, even as you're going out, just being mindful of everything that we've done over the past several months. Because what we don't want to see here is what we're seeing in other areas. We don't want to see an increase, we don't want to see any spikes. And especially as we're coming up on the flu season, we want to make sure that everyone remains as healthy as possible. So again, thank you for all of your efforts and continue to do what you've been doing to keep everyone safe.
So, and Dr. Griffin, I want to personally thank you for the last 22 weeks. I know we don't have to because it's part of what you do each and every day. But I do want to ask, since you talked about flu season coming, should or shouldn't we take a flu shot? Should a person take the flu shot, and why is it good? Some people, against it. Some people say it makes them sick, a little sicker, or whatever they want to do. But should we take the flu shot, since you talked about the flu season coming in?
Yes, right now, we know it's controversial. We know that
Yes.
there are a lot of individuals who are for immunizations and individuals who are against immunizations. But in the climate that we're in with COVID, it's so important to make sure that you're boosting your immune system and you're protecting yourself as much as possible. And because of the symptoms and because of the fact that flu symptoms and COVID symptoms overlap somewhat, the recommendation still is to make sure that you go out and you get immunized because you don't want to complicate the situation even as the flu season approaches. So
Will the health department be offering flu shots this year?
We certainly are.
And what is the criteria?
So we actually provide support for children as well as adults who are uninsured or underinsured.
Okay,
And so
great.
if you don't have anywhere to go to obtain your flu shot, you can certainly contact the health department at 973-266-5480, and we'll certainly assist.
And what days is that?
We do it actually every day during the week. So
Flu shots, so I can go over tomorrow and get my flu shot?
starting September.
All right. Oh,
Starting
September, okay.
Yes, we'll
All
do
right.
it every day. And so what we're actually preparing to do is to push into the community as well.
Thank
And so we'll be offering services in the community.
Thank you so much, Dr. Griffin. So, y'all hear that? This COVID-19 is not going anywhere. You still have to make sure you follow all the guidelines. I know for a fact that we're hearing the governor and other cities opening up, but as we've been saying for a long time, we cannot get lax in terms of what we're doing here in the city because we did very well, many of us. We did what we had to do, and we got to continue that because, it's not a normal thing anymore. We have to wear those masks, as Dr. Griffin said, and Dr. Manning was saying for the last 22 weeks, and making sure you're washing those hands and social distance, which some of you are not doing that. You're still having these parties, but we gotta get focus and back focus. But with that, we're going to go right into a conversation with before we go to the BA, before we go to Aja Baldwin with the census, we want to kind of like have a conversation with Ayanna Taylor. Vincent, how you doing this evening? You doing well? I can't hardly hear you, but we're gonna pull the volume up.
Sorry, I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing great. We are very honored to have you with us this evening, and I'm gonna turn it right over to you. If you got an opening, do your opening, then I'm gonna go right through some questions to you. You know.
Yeah. So I'll just introduce myself. That'll be my opening.
Okay.
Like you said, my name is Ayanna Taylor Benson. I am a clinical assistant professor of English education at NYU and also an entrepreneur working with schools and nonprofits in the area. And I also come to this work as a parent. I have a 23-year-old, a 19-year-old who's in college, and an 11-year-old who's entering the 7th grade. And then also I'm a board member in my town in Warren Township, New Jersey. So I'm not here representing my board, obviously, but I have a really nuanced lens about all of this uncertain and, difficult time that we're all going through with remote learning.
Right, and we really appreciate that. I mean, I'm quite sure you have been keeping up with what's going on with this COVID, and I know you have been keeping up with the school openings, right? And we see throughout from the state to the county to the local municipalities where folks are trying to figure it out, right? And our parents, parents are really trying to figure this whole thing out because it's something that probably many of us never went through in our lives. So I guess that I want to ask in terms of our parents, right? Because there's a new norm, right? And parents become individuals now where we become those teachers with the teachers, right? And with hands-on help. What is your recommendation, or what do you recommend when it comes to parents, and what advice would you give the parents to help with transitioning to a full remote learning?
Right. That's a good question. I would, I feel really privileged to have been a teacher, a middle school and high school teacher. So it doesn't feel as difficult to me, but it still is difficult even for me because I have to work to be a homeschool parent. So I would say a few things, that parents should have high expectations for their child and the school district. The spring was difficult for everybody. It was crisis time, and now we have more time to think about it. But at the same time, compassion should be part of that too, right? Those things aren't mutually exclusive. To have high expectations for your children and the school district and the teachers, but also have compassion for the situation that we're in. And the second piece of advice I would say is to don't be afraid to ask questions. As many questions as you have, feel like you are empowered to ask your child teacher, because that's the only way that you both can be real learning partners. And then the final thing that I have to remind myself to do too is just to check in on your child. So if you can imagine school, or imagine in your work life having several bosses, right, with varying expectations, different personalities, and tasks they want you to complete in a certain time frame, and then you switch to another boss. School is kind of like that in a sense for kids. And so I would say the first thing to ask is how are you doing at the end of each day, before you say what are you doing, or did you get your work done?
Wow, that's great. So how can parents and students, right, and teachers work together to ensure that students are getting the maximum learning experience while schools are operating remotely, right? Because we know, listen, all of us going to have to work together to work this thing out, right? So what is, from your experience, that we should be doing, and parents and teachers and students should be doing?
Right. And this is going to look different, right, for the young kids and for the older students who can work more independently from parents and teachers. But I think a big piece that I push my student teachers to ensure that they do is to make sure that you're in constant communication with parents. I would say weekly, or if not on a daily basis. Parents and teachers should be in communication with each other, and it's much easier if the teacher is sending out mass communications to everybody. What was really helpful for me during the spring was my son's science teacher would send us weekly emails to let parents know what was coming up for the next week and also what was accomplished that week. I also think that teachers who are in grade level teams, so if you're a 7th grade teacher and you teach math, English, all the different content areas, teachers should collaborate on a collective calendar of topics, assignments, and due dates so that parents can be more helpful at home to ensure that students are getting the work done. Whatever communication system the school chooses, it should be something that's streamlined and coordinated across all of the content area teachers for that grade level. And then I'm anticipating, for us in my district, our remote instruction will be synchronous. So there'll be more time where students are interacting with teachers during the day. So that should make it a little bit easier and less stressful for parents. I think that's a good thing to look forward to for them. And then I would say finally, it's important for parents at home to create space for school. Physical space. I recognize that everybody doesn't have the same amount of space in their home,
right.
But if they could dedicate space for each child or the one child to be able to work online, that would be, I think, really helpful in establishing the necessary routines for them to be successful.
Right. Thank you very much for that. So with that, we know parents with children in pre-K through the 3rd grade are also facing a tremendous hardship, right? How can parents make sure that their children is receiving a learning experience that will benefit them, their child?
Yeah, this is the one that I'm most worried about for remote learning because it's so important for students to learn phonics and number sense. And one of the things that I would love to see school districts do is to do some sort of parent university on these very specific things for pre-K through 3 parents where there's phonics instruction, because that's critical for reading comprehension as they get older. And then number sense, things like knowing how numbers work, knowing more versus less, and knowing that O and E represents the number 1. Those things are really critical at a young age, and most people, even myself, because I'm a secondary teacher, don't know how to really teach those things effectively. So I have resources that I can share, I can share with you that you all can put on your website, but my first place to go to is the local library. And East Orange Public Library, the county library systems have really great resources online. And if everyone has a library card, they can access those things. And then the other thing, I would name 3 resources if people want to write them down. Khan Academy is just really good. It's free. You can go through, if you want to remind yourself of what it felt like to be in pre-K through 12th grade math. Khan Academy has a sequence of math assignments, and you can get a parent account that will send you alerts when your child does work and show you their progress. Then there's something else called Teach Your Monster to Read. That's a free online learning game for letter sounds and reading full sentences, which like I said, is really important for the young kids to understand the sounds of letters so they can craft words and then craft sentences. And then the 3rd resource I would recommend is something called Wide Open School. And again, that's free, and it's a collection of the best online learning experiences that have been curated by an organization called Common Sense. So different organizations that have paid resources have also dedicated some free resources, and it's all curated on this website.
Wow, that was great, because that was really going to kind of drive me into my next question, right? Because there's plenty of parents that really have been out of school for a long time, right? And things have changed, when we was bringing books home and we was writing things down, computers and tablets was, kind of obsolete to my mother and my dad, which they kind of felt into it. And there's a lot of parents, when they look at the homework now and the way things are set up in terms of the curriculum, may have some, mixed feelings like, wow, I wonder if I can still help my high school child with this homework. What would you recommend? And I know you gave us a few things, but what would you recommend for that parent not to feel like he or she is are no help to their child, and how do we kind of position ourselves as parents to put ourselves in the position to say to our son or daughter, I can help you with this, right? And if they can't, the resources. You gave us a couple. How do you feel about that? Because there's some people struggling with that. You know, when you just haven't been in an education institute for a long time, sometimes you lose certain skills. So what should we be doing as parents?
Yeah, I would say for parents, there's no need for you to go back to school. If you want to, right? Like I mentioned Khan Academy, you can go on Khan Academy and relearn math, and they also have an English language arts portion, and then there are other websites. If you go to that wide open school, there's science and social studies resources. But the first place always to go is your child's teacher. They're the ones with all the information you need, and there's no expectation from teachers that you help students with, help your children with content. The expectation is that you create the environment and the conditions at home for them to be able to do their work, and you hold them accountable to doing the work. So if a teacher has office hours and you know that, they want you to help their child, help to tell your child to sign on for office hours, or sign on for extra help, or do the practice work that they give them. That's where I think parents can be most helpful, because relearning 5 content areas is unrealistic, and no parent should feel like they should burden themselves with that.
Right. Wow. Have from your experience, have you had any calls from parents or individuals to say, hey, what should I be doing? Have you had any of those experiences in the last 22 weeks, you know, especially when these schools have shut down? Have you had that experience?
Yeah, I mean, well, I work at an education school, so we get, you know, we are proactive in our support of parents, and one of the things that we've done is started this Teach at Home program, which is a tutoring program that is free for our New York City DOE parents. We have partnered with a specific community district in New York, and we have our student teachers who have varying expertise. They do virtual tutoring once a week. And so as a university, we decided that was our, that was our commitment that we wanted to make to the community. So we have parents who are just grateful for that free resource. But I would say any parent who reaches out to me, my first thing is always to say, reach out to the teacher. And if you are really want to stay ahead of everything, usually districts have their curriculum documents online, and you can go online, look at the curriculum documents, and see what is supposed to be taught.
Right. So you quite see often parents are caught between, making a decision, right? Should I send my kids to school, or are we going to do it remotely? And that's a very, very hard decision, because with this COVID thing, as the mayor, I want everybody to be safe, right? I want the kids to be safe. I want the parents to be safe. I want the principals to be safe. I want the teachers to be safe. I want the students to be safe, everybody, right? But here we are in the midst of this decision. We just heard our governor make an announcement yesterday and today saying, so the first 6 weeks of school would be remotely if the schools do not have the proper ventilation and have the proper health and safetyness. What is your take on that in terms of parents really, because this is the decision, you got parents that may have to go back to work and may have to need that child care, and or somebody to monitor that situation. What is your position on that? And what is your advice?
My position is always to listen to the science and the health professionals, but I recognize that people have different circumstances, right? And I know that everyone doesn't have the same options as other people, but I don't think we can get through this without a community response. It is unrealistic to think that the school district can do everything. It's unrealistic to think that you, as the mayor, can, do everything. So parents have to support each other. The school has to support the parents. Like, we all have to figure this out as a community. And that could mean like parents who don't have to work, or parents who can take in like a few kids, if the health professionals say that that's okay. Like if you have 5 children in a home who can social distance and I'm monitoring them and we help each other out in that way. I don't know, what the answer is. For me personally, it's to follow what the health professionals tell me. And we in our district have an option for full distance or hybrid, and I've chosen full distance for now. But like I said, I'm a teacher, so I feel confident in my ability to support my child in that way.
Right, and that's number one priority, right? So just very quickly, and I'm glad we're there with the same thinking. So there's a lot of parents too where they have, kids that are special need, right? And they have to make decisions, right? And they have to make decisions where we have special needy kids in our school system, in the district. They have to make some decisions to say how safe they're going to be, because we can't leave them out. They're there. They're part of our city. They're part of the school system. What is your recommendation when it comes to special needed kids? What advice can you give some of the parents that are still trying to find their way and navigate through? Should I take my son or daughter to school? If I take them, are they going to be all right? Are they getting the same educational learning? What is your take on that?
Yeah, my first place, so I like websites. There's a website called understood.org that is specifically for different learners. And they have a lot of resources and support on there for parents who have to manage a child with special needs at home. But that still does not replace the need for the specialists who've been trained to support their child. And that is something that they have to advocate for with the school district. The school district really has to figure out how they're going to meet the needs of those students, because more than anyone else, like that population and the population of pre-K through 3rd grade students, we really have to be creative about how we support them. And I would say to parents of any child, but specifically of special needs children, that you have to make sure that you are advocating, that you are on the phone, that you are making phone calls, that you are emailing whoever you need to email to make sure that your child is getting the services that they need. And some things can be done virtually, but there are other things that can't, and that has to be worked out in partnership with the school district.
Right, and I'm glad you said that, because for a fact, and data shows it, that when there's, because I raised a special needed child, my nephew Ibn, from 4 years old to present. Well, he's big now, but I know for a fact that we can do our part. But when they are in the professional environment with that teacher, with that special ed teacher, they need that it's a different care, it's a different atmosphere. So the kids do need those professional folks day in and day night. So that is a decision. Parents going to do what they have to do, but the professionals are the ones who sometimes allow those individual kids who need special needs to get more attention and better help. That's what I'm trying to say, right? So I think that that again, we're at a point where that has to be something, parents have to talk about, like the information that you just gave. They're gonna have to seek that. We're doing it. I know our board of education and our school district is doing everything they can. We just recently, a couple of weeks ago, we had Ms. Santos on, who was our special ed supervisor. And she kind of talked about a whole lot of things that is going to be happening this school year for our special need kids. So that was important. And I wanted to get that out because, we have 2 segments of kids that go to school. We have our regular kids who don't have those type of problems. Then we have our special needy kids who need that extra help. I do have a question in terms of like teachers are also tackled with a tremendous responsibility. The teachers, right? This school year, the background deals with classroom management, right? So that's a lot to encourage and interact learning environment. What advice do you have for teachers, for our teachers, and we commend our teachers so they can have optimism of the remote learning experience with our students?
Right. Yeah, this is what I do on a daily basis. So
I noticed you smiled when I said that, you know.
Say that again?
I said, I noticed you smiled when I gave you that question.
Oh, yeah, I would. Because I think building a classroom culture and community and partnership with parents is really, really important to the success of children. So I focus on it. And I would say for teachers to recognize that everything that is effective instruction in the classroom might not look the same in the virtual space, but there are some basic things that you should think about. So for example, how do you expect students to enter your classroom, the physical classroom? And then think about how will they enter the virtual space. And then like if you are someone who greets children at the door, like I think everyone should, how will you greet them when they enter the virtual space? A lot of times people just come on and everyone's silent, right? But as a teacher, you still have to be intentional about saying, you know, hi, Mayor Green, and make sure everyone feels welcomed into this space. And then what is acceptable in the virtual classroom might not be in the in-person classroom. So are students going to be able to eat their breakfast during your session? Like what, you know, you have to come up with the expectations for that. You'll see pets and siblings will go through the camera. Like what distractions are you going to try to plan for and anticipate in the virtual environment, and what is non-negotiable? You have to think about that. And then how will you handle bathroom breaks? If someone's at home and they're used to just going to the bathroom themselves without having to ask anyone, now this is a different kind of environment. So what kind of attention-getting signals will you use to see if students need to go get a new pencil or go to the bathroom, and then what are your expectations for them to return? And then the question of like homework. How will students submit homework, or what even is homework when you're already at home, right? So teachers have to think about that as well. And then the final thing I would say, like building community online is going to be really hard, especially if you allow children not to have their cameras on. You have to create some sort of community and be intentional about it every day, because they won't be able to build relationships in the same way that they were when they're together. So teachers need to figure out what is the ritual that we're going to do to start class or end class. There's an author named Zaretta Hammond. She wrote a book called Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain, and she talks about rituals and says that they are the way that teachers build culture and ignite student spirit and emotions in the classroom. And those things are really important. So teachers need to think about what rituals they're going to use to begin and end class, so they can be intentional about building community.
Great, and thank you so much for that. Before I move on to Aja and Solomon, we have a few people that's going to be calling on our line. Connie, how many people we got online?
Well, right now we have a few Facebook questions, but I want to backtrack a little bit. Mayor Green cut right to the chase and went right to Ms. Taylor Vincent, but I do want to make sure that everyone understands that as of yesterday, the school district announced that they have revamped their remote learning, or their reopening plan, and they are now going from a hybrid model to a full remote model. Everyone that's online, I know people have been asking about it. You can view the entire letter that the superintendent issued on the school district's website, and that website is www.eastorange.k12.nj.us. So as of September 8th, 2020, pending approval from the New Jersey Department of Education, the remote learning plan for all students will begin in East Orange. So as it stands, there will no longer be an in-person learning option for students in September.
And with that, and I thank you very much, Ms. Jackson. Our superintendent will be joining us next week on our virtual town meeting right here. I talked to him today because he gave me a call to give me that information. So all those parents and individuals that want those questions answered, our superintendents of schools, Mr. Hassan, will be here next Thursday, joining us at 6 p.m. So please tune in so you can get all those concerns and issues and questions that you may want to ask about this remote learning. And I do want folks to really understand that every day, and we know for a fact, all of us who sit on this panel, and I know that Ayanna can attest to this whole thing with this COVID, really every day it's a challenge. Every day there's different moving parts because you have the CDC looking at how this thing is moving. You have the governor looking at how it's moving. You have health officers like Dr. Griffin and so many others. And every day is a challenge. You know, they go from, you know, well, we may be able to go back to school on a Tuesday, and then the weekend come in. And I have to say that the weekend come in and folks go out and go to these parties and traveling outside of the state, and then folks are coming back in, and then you start seeing the numbers kind of fluctuating. But we got to get a little disciplined, because if we stop moving around and as my good friend from Newark say, shut down Sundays and shut down Saturdays, it shows statistically that by wearing the mask, by making sure that we practice social distance, and making sure that we constantly washing our hands for 20 seconds, that's routine, that those numbers will start to go down. But we cannot allow ourselves to get lapsed. But again, we're going to welcome Mr. Hassan back here on next week of our virtual meeting. Ayanna, don't go nowhere. We got a couple of questions that people on Facebook just want you to answer. So Connie, give me a few of those Facebook questions, please.
Well, this question actually could be answered either by Ms. Taylor or Dr. Griffith, and it's related to...
Connie.
This question could be answered either by you or by Dr. Griffith, and it's related to mental health and how we can help our kids during this process with their mental health. So maybe Dr. Griffith.
Sure. I think that's an important question, and even as we were talking a little bit about just learning, we were talking a lot about the academic curriculum, but we can't forget about the social and emotional health and that component. Because the reality is, as much as there are many adults that are feeling stressed and anxious, our kids are feeling the same way. And that's something that can impact learning as well. And so there are signs that you can look for. If your child is not usually restless and all of a sudden they're restless and they can't sit still and they can't focus, then perhaps they need additional breaks. You can provide them with breaks. You can devise ways of making learning fun and the experience at home fun. Home is generally a safe place, and so the parents, when they're with their parents, they can also have an opportunity to feel comfortable expressing whatever's going on for them and building into the general curriculum other opportunities, other rewards. Perhaps there are other things that they can be reinforced with, so that at least learning is, again, something that they can engage in. But then also emotionally, it's important to identify community resources as well that are available, because even for children, there are a lot of community resources that are available to help them through the pandemic and this process as well. And so you have a lot of clinicians, whether they're social workers, counselors, that are still making themselves available. And to the point earlier, the school districts as well. So even as we're transitioning to a virtual type of format, it's still important to engage all of the professionals that are associated with the school district and operating in the school district, because they still are available to you. And so pay attention to the signs. If there are differences in sleeping patterns, eating patterns, and even behavioral patterns, pay attention to that, because it may be an indication that your child needs a little bit more support than before.
Yeah. Ayanna, can you also kind of add on to that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, all to what the doctor said, everything I agree with. And also just harken back to my first point about asking first, how are you? And then worry about schoolwork, because I think that's really important. And I'll say, as a parent, one of the things that I have committed to doing, I did it in spring, pretty much all of my kids' lives, is protect them in some way, right? Because there's a lot of pressure to complete work. Just generally, there's a lot of pressure around school, especially when there's testing and all of that. And so as a parent, it's important that we also, while we have high expectations for our kids and we want them to finish work and we want them to learn and we're concerned about, any learning gaps, we also have to have compassion about the situation that we're all in.
Right. Well, that is true. Thank you, and Dr. Griffin, for that. Connie, do we have one more? Because I want to, and Ayana, don't go nowhere. Stay where you at, because I know there's some other questions coming. Where are we at, Connie, with another question?
So really, right now, we're getting a lot of questions, but they're very specific for the school district. So just hold on. We're going to make sure that we take those questions down and present them, so when Superintendent Hassan is here, he'll be able to respond to them. So now would be a good time to segue into our business administrator.
Right. So, and to all the parents, I know you're concerned about the school stuff. As Ms. Jackson said, we're going to make sure that during the week, if you need to reach out to us, feel free, but call over to the school district. They've been offering telephone numbers, the emails, and also the websites to call the school. I know Mr. Hassan and those folks on the Board of Education, our president, Terry, Tucker, Swanson, has been giving out numbers, so please call those numbers so that way you get your concerns answered. So I'm gonna go right into our next, I don't even want to call him a guest. He's our business administrator who really runs the day-to-day operation here at City Hall, and that's no other than Solomon Steplight. Now, Solomon, some people may not realize the work that happens behind the scene. And to keep the city safe and our frontline essential workers safe during COVID, but really just give us an overview of what you're doing, what you have been doing during this COVID, before the COVID, some of the things we as a team, but more so as you kind of led the charge on making sure folks got tests, made sure that our essential workers, non-essential workers, just give an overview, and then some of the funding that we was able to get in our city during this COVID, from FEMA money, from just everything, man. State, federal. The show is yours, man.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be back. I was in the first couple of town halls when things just started, but it's good to be back. A lot has happened since I was here the week of March 16th. The world has basically changed, but we hit the ground running here in East Orange. That's what's important. We always talk about keeping the community safe and clean. Well, the thing I want you to know is that safety is not just for the residents, it also goes for our employees. And since July 1st, we've created a safe environment for our employees to come back. We know how important all the services that we provide are to the city, and we have created an environment where there's constant sanitizing of our commonly used facilities and structures. There's testing. Over 98% of our employees have been tested. The 2% that don't have their test results, negative test results, are people who went to their own doctor and they're just waiting for the lab results. So we've done a phenomenal job in ensuring that people who are entering our workspaces have tested negative. We are cleaning the spaces. We have provided, I won't say PPE, I'll say we provided gloves. We provided disposable masks. We provided reusable masks. We have sanitized our vehicles with different mechanisms. We are wiping down surfaces even when they're not used. We're ensuring that everything we can do to keep our employees safe is being done. In addition to that, we're keeping all of you safe. So you will see signs and reminders throughout the city to wear a mask, don't throw your gloves, don't throw your used masks on the ground. We're doing everything possible to keep everyone safe. And I want to personally thank everyone who's been involved. Usually when you talk about an emergency, you talk about your first responders, police and fire. This has been unique in that we're talking about a pandemic. So since day one, it's been our health office, our health department, our fire department, OEM, our police department, all working hand in hand. There was a point where we were doing daily calls every day just to give a status report and update on where we are, where the city is, and what needs to be done in order to keep everyone safe. The reality is, because of this pandemic, the situation changes day by day. As the numbers go, the way we respond to it changes. And so we were prepared from day one. So to answer your question, we have been prepared from day one. We've done a lot. And because of that, we are already received over $100,000 in reimbursements from the federal government. We have a pool of money from the county, thankfully through the CARES Act. FEMA has provided money for us to be reimbursed for expenses related to the virus. We have received over $800,000 for an additional funding for the community development block grant dollars. The county cares, so everyone knows, is about $2.9 million. And in order for us to be reimbursed, there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of accounting that goes behind it. And our finance team and our purchasing team have been doing a fantastic job along with our OEM team to make sure that we get reimbursed. And the only way we get reimbursed is by having canceled checks, which means that it's gone from the purchasing and tracking all the way down to completing the financial process. So we're doing that work and we're logging it, and we're starting to see the funds come back to us. And we anticipate millions of dollars coming back to the city for all that has happened so far.
Right. And thank you so much for that, Solomon. So also, just outline some of the things that we had to do. We became a city that was open, you know, for business, which was still open, but we literally went from seeing our constituents walking to City Hall, walking to the offices, but second week in March, we had to shut down. Just explain to the constituents that are out there some of the things we had to do, but we still had to function and do the business of the city and our residents each and every day.
Well, I can say that we weren't prepared for a pandemic. And you will see that in the budget and the adjustments that we made. We didn't anticipate this pandemic hitting us in 2020. However, this team, this group of individuals, we adjusted. And what I mean by adjusted is we made the necessary changes in order to ensure that we could deliver the services from March 17th, which effectively was day one, until now. And that included putting a drop box behind City Hall for key documents, for tax payments, so residents still could go to the building and drop off their documents if they needed to. That allowed us to keep the development process going, because you could still drop off your payments for permits, you could still solicit information from city departments through that. But I want to remind everyone, and we certainly have put a number of processes and documents online, and even more processes and documents are going online. Soon our code enforcement department, all of the processes that normally require you to come in to the building to make payment for a permit will be available to you online. That should come in the next couple of weeks. So we have done a tremendous job in delivering our services in a new way because of this pandemic. But I want to remind everyone, while we are here to serve all of you, the people who work for the city are just that. They're people. they're parents. I'm a parent. They're providers caring for other individuals. So in addition to trying to figure out how to keep city services from being disrupted, we had to figure out how to keep our folks safe. And that required answering a lot of questions, working very closely with our health department, working very closely with HR, figuring out what the guidelines are at the federal level, at the state level, so that we can protect our employees as well. And it's required a lot of adjustments. Things change day to day, as I said, and we've developed policies to reflect, to the best of our ability, all that we've been confronted with.
Yeah. Listen, I all what you said, you know, and I thank you for that, because I always want folks to know that one thing about the Green administration is that our goal is to make sure that not only do we put the city first and our constituents first, but also all the employees who work hard each and every day in our partnerships, you know, again, when we talk about school district and the board members, East Orange General Hospital. I mean, Solomon talked about the first responders and our veteran hospital. So many people really join hands with us. But Mr. B.A., also talk about, if you can, you know, when we had to, you know, shut down, you talked about the drop boxes, you talked about the measures that we have taken in terms of keeping the employees safe. I just want folks to know, what were some of the programs we had to kind of switch in the mix of, you know, getting ready. Just say, for instance, we was getting ready in February to really launch what our summer program would look like, right? And we had to switch that. We had to look at our other outdoor activities. Talk about some of the things we had to do, not only working with our health department and working with other departments to change our whole concept and way of thinking during this whole summer.
Sure. Every year, particularly during the fall, we work very closely with our directors to figure out what the next year will look like. And we had very ambitious and aggressive plans to outdo what we did in the previous year for 2020. In February, we were moving full steam ahead. We prepared a draft budget that would have some new programming in recreation for this summer. We were anticipating hiring more folks to support that. The pandemic provided a curveball for us, so we had to adapt. And that again is a testament to our team. Our team went right to the whiteboard and drew up what can we do and what can't we do. And this summer, we've been able to, you know, despite all the obstacles, and when I say obstacles, I mean the pandemic forces us to social distance. So we had to consider that. It forces us to ensure testing. We had to consider that. It forces us to sanitize. We had to consider that. There are many of our participants, our kids and our adults, who needed food assistance.
Yep.
We had to consider that. In addition to that, because of the social distancing guidelines, some of the mandates that come from the state, we needed more people on site, even though the space was limited.
Yeah.
We had to consider that. But in spite of that, we were able to provide a summer experience for some of our young people in the city.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, we opened all of our pools.
That's right. That's right.
So on those hot days, you can still go take a dip. In addition to that, our parks are open for those who want to walk around the track, be physically active without being on our city streets.
That's right.
So our recreation team has done a tremendous job in spite of all the obstacles.
Yeah, listen, I agree with you that 100%. And you know, as we talk about even the partnerships, you know, we want to really thank the East Orange City Council also, because they had to roll up their sleeves also and make sure that these things work. So I just want to personally thank our chairman, Chris James, and the East Orange City Council. But also, you think about it, Mr. B.A., we went from actually having meetings in a room together and now everything we're doing either on Zoom or virtual, you know.
Right.
So
That's right.
we went from shaking hands in the morning or giving each other a hug from now we touching elbows and sitting 12 feet apart or 6 feet apart.
Yes.
So with all of that, and we say our East Orange family, we had to adjust our life also. So I just want folks to really have an understanding, because sometimes when you mention the administrator or the business administrator, they don't know all the work that that you have to do, you know, in your capacity. And I just want to personally say you do it with a fine fashion, and I appreciate it, man. But just, do we have any questions online, Connie, for our business administration?
No, not for
None for the
me
business
yet.
administrator, huh? See?
No.
That's what I said, people don't know how, but it's all good. We know he works hard. But with that, I want to go right into, because listen, our business administrator talked about all the important funding that we got during this COVID-19. And when we talk about funding, to have this next young lady talk about the census, I just want to give all of our residents an opportunity to know that by filling out the census, and you'll hear from Adrian, you heard how East Orange General Hospital played a vital role in helping our residents when they had to go into the hospital, and so many other people, right? And when our BA talked about getting our roads paved and milled, he talked about our recreation department, he talked about our DPW, he talked about just several things. And how that works is that if we don't do the census, and I just already talked about that, a lot of those fundings we would not have gotten. So again, with that, I want to introduce everybody to a young lady who has been really doing a great job and making sure that the word get out there and that all of us are being counted. I want to turn the floor over to Aja Borwin, who is the coordinator here in the city of East Orange for 2020 census. So Aja, it's good having you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, just go give an overview on, do your thing, girl. Make you famous.
So basically what the census is it's basically a head count for the entire country. So it's a survey that comes out every 10 years. It's basically they're going to ask you questions about how many people are in your home, what the genders are, what the ages are, and you want to count everybody, whether it's a baby or a kid or a grown-up, a senior citizen, if they're just staying, for the year and they might move out, they're in college, whatever the case is. So basically what that survey determines is the billions of dollars across the country that are going to be allocated to each country, to each city and to each state. So basically that's what the census really is and why it's so important. So the money, like you said, it goes to roads, it goes to the schools, to hospitals, healthcare facilities, it goes to public lunches, the recreation, and tons of different things. So basically, right. That's what it is.
So Ms. Borwin, really, you have been doing a stellar job at really trying to get the message out. I know you're going to be doing some other things in terms of making sure we get the message out, but also explain to the residents, right? Because sometimes people myth about doing the census because this ISIS thing is sitting out there. Sometimes people feel when people knock on their door and you provide information, folks sometimes have a tendency of thinking that they can kind of get put in a situation with their information and deploy it back to. Explain that that's not the case and how this thing really works.
So that is a large misconception that's going on with the census right now. So basically the census is totally confidential. So basically what the census is literally just to know how many people are in the cities, the states, the countries, just for that funding. That's the only thing it is. It can't be dispersed to any law enforcement or to any other capacity. And starting August 11th, anybody that hasn't completed their census already, there will be census representatives coming to your house. And it's easy to distinguish a census representative opposed to a different person that might be knocking on your door because they'll have census gear. So they'll have their identification with the watermark on it. They'll have census hats. They'll have identifications to tell. And they'll never ask you for things like your citizenship. They won't ask you for your social security number or anything like that. So it's totally confidential. So those myths are kind of easy to avoid. And if you go on 2020census.gov, they have way more information on the confidentiality, the security, and any other questions that you might need.
So I'm a senior, right? And I don't have a computer. What other way, if I wanted to cast my count with the census, is there a telephone number that I can go on and also prompt? Can you tell the people about that? You can go on the different ways of going on to cast your...
Right. So there are actually 3 different ways that you can complete the census. One, earlier in the year, you would have received the blue postcard in the mail, and then you would have received a letter. So that letter is the actual survey. You can either fill that survey out that you received and mail it back. If you lost it or you didn't get that, then you can go online to 2020census.gov. But like you said, if you don't have access to internet, you can call in, and the number is 844-330-2020. And basically, that phone number, you can go on and you can fill out, basically you can get in any language. So if English is not your first language, you can get a number in Spanish or Creole or Arabic, whatever language you're best at, and then you can complete it like that.
Right. So when is the deadline for the census, and how soon we should be getting this information in? And what's, as I said, what's the deadline? When is the last day for the census to be in?
The last day is September 30th.
So by September 30th, East Orange, get that census in. Is anything that you're going to be doing in terms of outreach other than what you talked about? Are you working with any other organizations or any other organizations working with the city to really get this message out? Because we know that several council members did a PBS. I'm going to be doing some PBSs. I just saw that our lieutenant governor did a PBS. What other outreaches and other things that you're going to be doing to market folks to really get out there and complete the census?
So besides the social media outreach that we've been doing, you'll also see some banners around the city that have census information. It has the website and the phone numbers that you can go on. Also tomorrow, actually, we'll be in Brick Church Plaza in the parking lot. We'll have a census van out there, so you really can't miss it. You can complete the census there if you want. We'll have some more of those little kiosks around the city eventually, and you'll hear about that on social media. We'll be at the movie night with the census information. And you can always call, the mayor's office, and then I'll help you figure out how to complete your census that way.
Right. You talked about movie night here in the city of East Orange, and I know that is a great segue to get people together and also give them information. What day is the movie night?
The movie night is August 20th. It's a Thursday.
And where is that going to be located?
It'll be at the East Orange Campus High School parking lot. And the movie will start at sunset, and you'll get the link that you have to RSVP for that soon.
Wow. What movie are you showing?
We're playing Aladdin. Yeah.
All right, so I think that's a good movie. But I just really thank all of you who has been really working with the 2020 census. I know how important it is. I know that all of us who sit at this table, and I know that we have been really trying to push, but we're going to challenge all of our residents. We're going to challenge you tonight. And we're going to challenge you, if you already filled out the 2020 census, we're going to challenge you to call 5 people in your family or 5 of your friends and just ask them if they filled out the census. If they haven't, we're asking all of you to help us, to help you, to help us be counted, right? Because this is a team thing. And once you get 5 people that did not fill out the census, we want you to post it. To say, hey, I got 5 of my friends or my family members or my neighbors who did not fill out and complete the census. I got them to fill it out. That'll help us because in East Orange, we constantly drive this thing we call one city, one community, one goal. That goal is progress. We need you, all of you, that's listening, that's watching out there, to really help us get our numbers up. Because we need these federal dollars in our community. So I'm asking all of you to do that for us. Very quickly, I just want to go back to our administrator, right? And very quickly, Mr. Steplight, because I'm excited about what goes on in the city of Zorn. Can you just give an overview of some of the redevelopment that we have in our city? Just an overview so people can know that even during this pandemic, that this administration, this city council, we never stop working because we know how important it is to make sure we move this city forward.
Sure. Well, let me begin by saying we have over $1 billion worth of development happening in the city. And you probably see large and small construction projects happening in every neighborhood. Things from 200-unit buildings going up under construction now to rehab projects with different homes, maybe your neighbor's home. But there's even more, Mayor, in the pipeline. We have projects moving forward from the Brick Church project that we've been talking about. Kazuri Kijiji,
yes,
which has been sitting there for a while. That's on the planning board agenda for next month. It's moving.
Yes.
We have other projects such as on Washington Street, on Park Avenue. All these projects are in various stages of site plan approval, redevelopment agreements, financial agreements, all of these things that are happening behind the scenes that we call our pipeline. And over the next 18 months, you're going to see a lot more development and construction happening in the city. It's an exciting time to be here. The larger projects typically get attention. Right. But the things that I'm excited about are some of the one-family and two and three-family homes that Director Jennings has talked about in previous town halls that will allow some of our renters in the city to become homeowners. Yes. There's a lot of affordable housing projects that are going on, which means that the current stock of affordable housing is being replaced or upgraded. And some of those projects include our senior buildings. Yes. There was a recent article about Norman Towers, where every single unit in Norman Towers will be renovated over the next 18 to 24 months. So there's a lot happening in the city, and it's a true testament to your leadership, as well as the council's leadership, to make these things happen, to make East Orange an inviting place for developers. That's in spite of this pandemic. In spite of all that is going on in the world, people want to invest their money in this city.
That's right. That's right. And thank you very much for that, Mr. B.A. So listen, this virtual meeting tonight has been really, to me, very enlightening. We had Ayanna Teller, who somehow got clicked off. She got clicked off, but we want to thank her for being with us tonight and really sharing some vital information to our parents and our students and to all those who are watching. And then you hear week after week after week from Dr. Griffin, who gives the numbers and really give us the understanding of how this thing is working with the COVID. I am going to ask Dr. Griffin just to close out with whatever she wants to talk about, because it's always important before we close out to remind all of us in this 22 to 23 weeks that we have to stay vigilant. So Dr. Griffin, talk about what you talked about earlier, and I don't want to kind of repeat myself, but the importance of staying vigilant, but also the testing sites, that we're still engaged in testing sites and we're still making sure that we do everything we can in the city of East Orange to keep our numbers down.
Absolutely. What I would just, again, stress is everything that we've been doing. I think that it's important for the residents to keep up the good work. We know that there are many residents that are still very diligent about doing what they need to do to keep themselves and the community safe. And that's how we achieved the result that we achieved. Our numbers are stabilizing. We're seeing an increase in the number of negative cases and a decrease in the number of positive cases that are identified. But we can't stop, because we recognize that there is a lot going on around us. And so it's important to still get tested so that you know where you stand, because that's a part of how you can protect yourself and protect your loved ones and also those that are around you. We have our local municipal site that is still active. We open our site twice a month, so every other week our municipal site is open. We also have other local sites that are offering testing as well. Wherever you choose to go, whether it's your own practitioner or you're looking for a pharmacy to conduct the testing or any other site, it's so very important for you to get tested so that you know what your status is in this particular case for COVID, and we can all just continue to collectively work together to keep our rate of transmission low here in the city. So thank you again for everything that you've done over the past several weeks, and it's important for us to keep doing what we've been doing so that we don't have to so we don't move backwards and so we don't see an increase in the transmission rate here within the city.
Thank you, Dr. Clifford. Solomon, you've been doing a lot with this name also. Do you have a closeout? Do you want to say anything? It's up to you,
Well, I do want to, again, I've already said it, thank our first responders. I want to thank those people who put themselves in danger every single day to keep us safe. I want to assure all of our staff and residents that we're going to do everything we can to keep them safe and to keep our numbers low in the city. I wear my mask every day in the office. The mayor knows, so we practice what we preach, and I encourage all of you to do the same. The other thing I want to say, just touching on the investing in East Orange piece of it is, as the mayor knows, I'm currently renovating my property here, and a number of my neighbors are doing the same. I encourage all of you to consider investing in East Orange. If you have questions on how to do that, feel free to reach out to my office or to Director Jennings' office. You can reach my office at 973-266-5310. Be safe, everyone.
Thank you. So, Aja, you want to close out with anything, any information, or you want to give any numbers out to our residents? I just always like to make sure the panel have a last word. I think it's always important.
Okay. I'll give out the information for the census one more time. So the website is 2020census.gov, and the phone number is 844-330-2020. And right now we're at 48.3% with the response rate. So we're trying to get it up to 100. So just spread the word, everybody. If you haven't filled out your census, just make sure you go out and complete it because it's really quick and it's really easy. That's it.
And
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Aja, can you, because we did have someone on Facebook ask, what time will you be at Brick Church again tomorrow?
Oh, it's from 12 to 3 at Brick Church.
12 to 3,
12
come
to
on
3.
out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So with that, let me just personally thank the panel tonight. Again, thank each and every one of you for always tuning in with us. I want to thank my staff who really makes this happen each and every week. I'm really grateful for all of them, but more so grateful to all 70,000 residents here in the city of East Orange. From day one, we started having these town hall meetings virtually. We all talked about the importance of all of us staying safe and healthy. And here we go, after 22 to 23 weeks. I always add a week on, so if I'm wrong at 1 week, we near that week. So, but here we are again, never yet wavered from our responsibility to bring information to the constituents and to the people in this community. I'm very grateful that all our guests that we had on from day one, from our governor, Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, our Governor Phil Murphy, our county executive, Joe D., our Congressman, Donald Payne Jr., We also had our Assemblywoman Brittany Timberlake on. We also had the Commissioner of the unemployment from the state, the Commissioner. We had so many people that joined us on our virtual meetings, and we're very grateful. And here we are still making sure that you get the information, but the most important thing is to make sure that all of us continue to not only stay safe, not only stay healthy, but again, we asking all of you tonight before we tune out and see all of you back here next Thursday to help us be the police of our community, right? I quite often get the calls or folks are texting me or on Facebook, Mayor, there's a group of people in my hallway, they don't have the mask on. Mayor, there's a group of people having a party, they don't have the mask on. Mayor, there's a group of kids walking down the street, they don't have the mask on, or not practice social distance. But what I ask tonight is all of us become part of the police department, right? Our police department have to do what they have to do, but we as a community has to make sure we start policing the people around us. If you see a young person, and we know how hard it is, we know, because some young people sometimes get offended, but we have a responsibility to remind that young person or that elderly person to wear face covering. And why it's so important is that we see it all the time, that you can be out with a group of your friends or even family members and go home and your grandmother's there or your grandfather there, and what happens, you can affect your grandparents or you can affect your youngest sister, youngest brother. So none of this stop. We even though the weather has turned warm and people starting to feel, I need to get out, that's fine. Dr. Griffin and other practitioners never said that don't go out. What they said, if you go out, go to your backyard or go in your front of your house. Or if you go out, practice social distance and be careful who all of us around. That includes all of us in this room. So as we close out tonight, East Orange, we came a long way. We're going to continue to make sure that we do everything we can as your mayor and as the administration and as East Orange City Council, but we're asking all of you to play your part. And the only way you play your part is being, as I said earlier, help us to police our community by talking to that person about not having a mask, talk to our young kids for not having, practicing social distance. So again, with that, may God bless all of you. May God bless your families. May God bless East Orange. We'll see you back here next week. And like I said, with our superintendent, Mr. Hassan.